You're in what town? Brownington. At the Brownington School. Yes. You have a great principal in Mrs. Vanna, don't you? And some terrific teachers here. I'll be here today, and I'll be here tomorrow. I'll be reading my poetry. I'll be reading the poetry of other kids about your age. I'm excited about this. I'm going to be teaching you how to write some poems, and you're going to be teaching me. It's going to be a two-way combination. I've been writing poems since I was about your age. I still have some of them in boxes. My mother saved them all. And I can't wait to see some of the poems you're going to write. What is poetry? I see a lot of hands coming up here. I bet you could give me some good definitions. How about you? Yeah, what's a poem? Anybody else going to help me out here? How about you?
Something that rhymes.
Something that rhymes. Do they all have to rhyme?
No.
If they don't rhyme, what are they called?
Sentences.
Free verse poems. I like to write rhyming poems, and I like to write free verse poems. And I never know which one it will be until I start writing it. There are many definitions on what a poem is and what poetry is. You can find them on the internet. But here's one of my favorites. It was written by one of my favorite poets, Robert Frost. A poem begins with a lump in the throat, a homesickness, or a love sickness. It is a reaching out toward expression, an effort to find fulfillment. A complete poem is one where the emotion has found its thought and the thought has found its words. As I mentioned, some of the poems I write are rhyming poems and others are free verse. And I usually don't know which one will happen until I begin. It just happens. I like writing about things that inspire me. Animals, nature, people, thoughts, emotions. Many of the poems I write definitely are inspired by this beautiful state of Vermont. How do I write? Do I sit down in front of the computer and start typing? No, it doesn't happen that way. Something has to come to me. Something has to motivate me. I could be driving down the road. I could be in Brownington driving on one of the muddy roads. And something will come to me, and I have to start writing. So I stop the car, and I get out my notepad, and I start writing things down, because I can get back to it later. I encourage you to do the same. You don't have to sit down and write a complete poem. If something comes to you, just write it down. You can get back to it later. With the help of Mrs. Vanna and your terrific teachers and staff, each of you will be getting a copy of a book of selected poems where you can put your name on. So it'll be yours. These are some of the poems I've written over the last few years. When I teach you how to write poems, I will be using many of the techniques in this book right here. A book written by Kenneth Coe. It's called Wishes, Lies, and Dreams. I only got this book recently. I had his second book called Rose, Where Did You Get That Red? But I didn't have this one. In this book, Mr. Coe teaches children, he taught children in New York how to write wish poems. Lie poems. Not like telling lies to your teacher or your mother or your father. Not that kind. Dream poems. Noise poems. And many other kinds of poems. As I read my poems to you today, I hope you pay close attention. See if you can hear any wishes, any lies, any dreams, and any noises in my poems. Okay, I'm going to read my first poem. How many are concerned about the hair? I mean, you wake up in the morning and it's messy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like messy. And your mother or your father is always telling you got to shampoo it at least once a week. Okay. We're all concerned about our hair, aren't we?
No.
So I wrote this poem called Hair. But first, before I read it, does anybody know who Andre Agassi is? Is there any? Who knows who Andre Agassi is? Could you tell me?
Tennis player.
He's a tennis player. And he was #1 in the world at one time. He's a great player. In fact, he has a school that he developed in Las Vegas for children. He's a great person. Could you tell me about his hair?
Non-existent.
He doesn't have any. He shaved it all off. He used to have hair going down all the way. But he shaved it all off. So I have to make sure before I read this poem that you know who Andre Agassi is. So I'll begin. Hairstyles are changing every day. And I have a multiple choice of what I want atop my head to express my inner voice. The options are quite extensive. My brain will soon be hazy. Picking a style from the list will surely drive me crazy. I could be hip and go dreadlocks, like snakes along my temple. Or maybe cornrows would be cool, creative, transcendental. Or shave the sides and wax the top with a mohawk arched to the sky. All eyes will be upon me whenever I walk by. Funky or shaggy, short or long, it is not an easy decision. Ponytail, flat top, blue or green, what more can I envision? With all the hairstyles one can pick from inside this vast galaxy, I think I'll just shave it off and go a la Agassi. Now, we're going to go on. We're going to have a little PowerPoint presentation to go with many of the other poems. The first one's called Llamas Wearing Pajamas. This poem, I'm going to add some more to it later on as I'm writing, and I wanted to develop it into an illustrated children's book of poems. Have you ever seen llamas wearing pajamas? Or a dancing cow in a herd? Or a big bull moose riding atop a caboose? Do you think my question's absurd? Just the other day, while out making hay, I saw something to make me take heed. A black and white skunk, dressed up like a monk, riding a unicorn steed. I next saw a cheetah, eating Velveeta, playing chess with a colorful bird. The bird was colossal. It seemed rather docile. I hope you're not doubting my word. I spied an ogo rowing a boat, filled with white cats and black dogs, and also a lion chopping onions and crying to the music of a pond full of frogs. Up in the sky, a pink elephant did fly, with the ease of an eagle on wing. And alas, an alpaca ran right smacker into a panda on his way to Peking. A goose and a rabbit developed a habit of scaring a giraffe, and a yak. They would run off in fright at the hideous sight to fend off their sneaky attack. A smiling green dragon was pulling a wagon loaded with chickens and sheep. It was such a weird vision. They had a collision with some ducks who were trying to sleep. I was filled with remorse till I spotted a horse who jumped through a big ring of fire. A donkey was cheering as the horse started rearing at a worm in the muck and the mire. Heed the words I have spoken. Keep your eyes wide open to these creatures in air and on ground. You'll never know when you may see them again, or some others just as profound. I bet you're going to be able to help me add some more stanzas to that one. The next poem is called Great Blue Heron. Has anybody ever seen a great blue heron? They're big. They got big wingspan, and I've had many come to my farm and they land at the edge of the pond and they stand like a statue. And sometimes they sneak around and they're looking for crayfish to eat. They're beautiful. So this is inspired by a great blue heron who came to the edge of my pond. So I said, I got to write a poem about him. Great blue heron at the edge of my pond, your sorcerous neck is like a magic wand. Alone you abide, frozen is your stance. You seem mesmerized as if in a trance. What are you seeking as you slowly traipse along? Your beak is a weapon, an archer's mighty prong. Is it crayfish you seek, an unsuspecting trout? Perhaps a frog or two on your sneaky walkabout? I too stand captivated. You have brightened up the day. With your regal beauty, I hope that you will stay. Quietly I linger and watch you do your thing. It would be sad right now for you to take to wing. You might see an animal that inspires you to write a poem. My next poem is called Gifts. And it's a poem that sort of expresses my love of animals, whether they be wild or domesticated. This is my mare, Cinder. She's a quarter horse mare, and that's her first baby, Creek. Creek will be 4 years old this June. The animals bring their gifts. Wolf howl of the wolf, sweet song of the songbird, sauna boom of the humpback, horse whinny of the untamed equus. These roamers of plains, nesters of forests, deep water divers, traversers of valleys and hills, live off instinct as prey, as predators, in balance, take what is vital, return the same. These special creatures, higher beings, are living symbols of what we once were, can again become, if in silence we watch and listen. This is Cinder, my mare. That's Cinder's chocolate piece. She'll be 2 years old. That's her second baby. And Bear Mountain Creek. And my first love, Willoughby Skipper, who was born at the Perry Farm here in Brownington. He's a Morgan. This is Peace when she was like 2 weeks old. And this is a young girl your age visiting the farm and listening and watching and rubbing down Peace.
A horse. A fish.
Do we have any fishermen here? Fisherwoman? Anybody ever catch a brook trout? Wow, that's great.
I've got a trouble
Now this is a drawing. This is a pen and ink drawing I did a few years ago of a Northeast Kingdom brook trout. Now in Latin, we're going to learn a little Latin today. Brook trout in Latin is Salvelinus fontanalis. Can we say that? Salvelinus fontanalis. Very good. Now this poem I'm going to read is called The Quest. I started writing this poem in the 70s when we first came to Vermont, and on the farm that my father bought, there was a river going through it, and I caught a few trout. So I started writing this poem, and I put it away. I didn't find it till a few years ago. I said, this is unfinished, so I had to finish it. The Quest. One of the words in this poem is ephemeral. So when you hear the word ephemeral, you may not know what that means. It means short-lived, brief, fleeting. By a stream ne'er faltering on its chosen path, chiseled through ages long surpassed, at home within a world of uneyed sights, is where I choose to make my promised land. There, in the oaken smells of spring, ruled by the lonely, lordly hills, which so diligently embrace that chosen stream, is where I set my foremost dream. The flashing water of the rippling rivulet holds beneath its silver-clad waves the soul's sincere desire of my quest, the most worthy of them all, the cagey trout. Stealthily I approach the riverbank and cast my line into a likely pool, and let the fly meander where it will, in hopes of luring Salvelinus fontanalis from his bed. Chickadees arrive to inspect the scene. A distant owl cries out his mating hoot. The sun drops slowly to the hills, and breezes do their rustling in the trees. A deer slyly sneaks out from the bush and feeds on clover in a nearby field. Her spotted fawn soon joins her at her side, then frolics in the clover when all seems safe. I soon forget the object of my quest, as nature does her thing with all I see. This peaceful setting puts the mind to rest and gives the soul a reason just to be. Suddenly, my rod feels a jolt. The line unwinds briskly off the reel. Instinctively, my focus reappears as the brookie and I are joined to one another. The rod tip bends to meet his every thrust as he valiantly tries to break our ephemeral bond. Soon my net enshrines the speckled being, and he sparkles as I lie him gently in the grass. Quickly I release the hook from his lip and hold him with 2 hands and feel his life. Then gently place him back into the stream, the place of his beginning and that of mine. Sometimes when I am lying in my bed, while thinking of my quest so pensively, I wonder if I really hooked that trout, or if that trout had put its hook in me. The next poem I'm going to read is called Old Friend. It's about a horse. My horses are not that old. Cinder's 11. Skipper is about 7, right, Spencer? Where's Spencer? I think he's about 7 right now. And Creek is 4 and Peace is only 2. But I know the feeling that somebody might have if they had an older horse. So I had to write this poem. Old horse, old friend, your mane of flaxen hair still shines when the early morning sun hits it right. Stay yet another day for me to do my chores. Let me get you a bale of fresh hay and fill your bucket with clear water one more time. Let me stroke your aging body with my wrinkled hand. Grand times were ours in days gone by. Together we rode, my saddle draped behind your sturdy shoulders. You held me safe and high. My every thought was known by you, as your fluid movement matched the grace of a Baryshnikov. You pulled the sleigh along forest paths and high-stepped through white meadows as bells rang out our presence. In summer, with your body and harness to a buggy, we ventured down country lanes, the humming of the wooden wheels and the rhythmic beat of your 4 hoofs, clip-clop, clippity-clop on the gravel road, still reverberate in my mind. Stay yet another day and let me give you grain. For time is near when you will pass, and time for me to shed a tear. We are as one, the two of us, so let me brush your coat, clean your stall, and lay down fresh wood shavings. Stay yet another day. Perhaps we'll saddle up and take just one more ride across the muted meadow. Perchance I'll get your harness and hitch you to the sleigh. We'll traverse along a gentle lane with bells pealing once more and dream of times when we were one and young. Your mane of flaxen hair still shines when the early morning sun hits it right. So stay yet one more day, old horse, old friend. Thank you, kids. We're going to learn some more Latin. The next poem we're going to read is called Sonitus Indomitus. Can you say Sonitus Indomitus? Indomitus. Very good. It means wild sound. You ever walked in the woods and heard wild sounds of birds? You ever heard a deer go blat? Have you ever heard a horse whinny? The sounds of the animals are quite beautiful, and they're all out there. Have you ever heard the frogs go croak, croak, croak? Okay. How about the spring peepers? Huh? They're going full blast right now. So this poem is inspired by the sounds that I've come across in nature. When I least expect it, they are there. Those wild sounds of creatures great and small. As I gingerly plod along, the thunderous whack of a beaver's tail hitting the water like a pair of 2x6s coming together warns all of my trespass. My senses awaken, I move on, not wanting to disturb this innate engineer at work building dams. I hear the rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat-tat of a piloted pirate and find him tending to a dead hemlock. His head jackhammers. The hemlock is a sieve, but strangely stands despite the chisel's pounding. Now, seeing me, the axe bird circles, hides, sharpening his beak for the next attack. In the low branches of conifers, chickadees join in, dashing over and under each bough, their wings buffeting the air with a whoosh, 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 their voices ringing out a contented chickadee, chickadee. I find a decaying stump to sit on, left by a logger long ago. The breeze picks up. The rustling of leaves in the bush is met by the pulsating, pummeling, wing-flapping sound of a grouse in flight. I wonder what gave him cause to flee. The soft, low blat of a deer wends its way across the meadow. Perhaps a doe, keeping her fawn aware of my presence and that of mine, of her presence and that of mine. My attention is drawn above, the sky filled with a tumultuous chorus of honkers, like a brass band of 8th graders all playing their instruments for the first time. Honk, 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 honk descends from the heavens, each goose drafting off the wingtips of its predecessor, sounds the horn for all to stay in V formation. The wind abates, silence hoods the forest. I rise, and stealing to the meadow, stumble upon a pair of killdeers, feigning injury, wings dragging, hobbling along to draw me away from their nest. These ringed plovers screech cacophony as their shrill "kill-dee, kill-dee, kill-dee-dee-dee" fills the valley. In the wild apple grove, a muted hum, hum, hum interposes. A hummingbird, in rapid winged fire, dashes to and fro like a helicopter, maneuvering to each newly opened blossom. Hum, hum forwards, hum, hum backwards, defying the rules of aerodynamics. Dusk approaches. An army of spring peepers launches an unremitting refrain, each trying to outdo the other with dissonant reverberations of beep, 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 beep. Soon the chorale is interrupted by the maestro of the pond, a bullfrog letting out his deep-throated, foreboding rope, rope, rope. As I near the barn, the mellifluous whinnying of my horses in the pasture draws me. Standing at peace on the crest of a knoll, silhouetted by the light of a full moon, they look my way and neigh again, letting me know that all is well and that contentment reigns with all creatures great and small in the North Country. Long poem. I have a little short little poem right here. It's called Ensemble. You've ever seen a little pile of leaves and the wind, it's on the ground, and the wind sort of gets a hold of it and it starts whirling around and the leaves come right off the ground like in a cyclone. You ever see that?
Oh yeah.
And they go, the leaves just start spinning around like defying gravity. So this poem is called Ensemble. A casual ensemble of leaves rises up in circles in crazed delight into a whirlwind. Their dance is my dance. Now, I'm gonna skip this poem. I'm gonna go on to the one after. No, you can leave that there. This poem, I think you have this picture will be, and the poem will be in this book that you're going to get. And this was this is an old wood Vermont sap bucket cover. Probably 100 years ago, the sap bucket covers were made out of wood. And I was able to get a few of these and do paintings on them through the years. I did this one in 1986. The last poem I'm going to do is called Willoughby Skipper, because Spencer insisted that I do this one. No, Spencer, incidentally, is a really good horseman. You see his picture in the paper, in the Chronicle? There's a great story on Spencer and his great father, who was a terrific horseman. This is called Willoughby Skipper, which is my bargain. Okay. At dawn, My young bay Morgan is poised like a regal statue on the crest of a knoll. Head held high, neck curved like the arc of a quarter moon. Winter coat of thickened hair buffering the chill of daybreak. Chiseled silhouette of a proud dream. A thin wire strung from cedar post to cedar post keeps him from the freedom enjoyed by his founding ancestor more than 200 years ago. Justin Morgan's diminutive stallion figure, begetter of legends, could walk, trot, work, and run with more alacrity than any other horse of his era. My skipper stands a worthy testament to his proud lineage and sees beyond the thread-like line to the meadow and woods which beckon. He watches me leaving the barn, a bale of hay in each hand for balance. On my walk to the pasture, he gallops with the ease of a dancer to greet me. Bits of snow flinging off his feet, each cadence footfall resounding off the frozen earth and ringing through our valley and its attendant hills. He stands before me with perfect conformation and powerful musculature from shoulder to hindquarter. I lay the hay atop drifting snow. Skipper whinnies softly to let me know that all is well. We pause in silence, man and horse. I ponder, do I have dominion over him? I think not. I have taken him into my world. He has allowed me into his. He succumbs to my requests as I whisper my instructions. It's a communion between us. Even now, he seems to know what I am thinking, even if I do not whisper. I measure him in hands. He stands still and noble on hooves of steel, measuring me. I open the gate and turn to say, "Skipper, let's go." But he is already there, just behind my right shoulder. No need for bridle and lead rope. He is unrestrained in a thigh stall. I brush his body's chestnut coat from withers to croup, remove briars from his mane. He nudges me tenderly on the arm as my curry comb massages chest and girth. My gift to him is to provide food and shelter that his progenitors sought in the wild. Skipper's gift to me is the permission he grants to be part of his world. There is divinity in his equanimity. Thank you. This is Redford. He was my first golden retriever, and I write about him in my book, A Bed of Leaves. He's no longer with us. He's in doggy heaven, but this was a picture I took when he was just a little puppy. This is Sundance. He's my golden retriever now. And he was with Redford for a while. And Sonny's about 8 years old now. And this was last summer when he had his summer haircut. He's due for another one. Because his hair is shedding all over the place and there's tumbleweeds all over my house. Some of you might identify with that. So we're gonna get into the classrooms and we're gonna be teaching some poetry. So thank you very much, kids.